last week's video, after 3 to 4 weeks of wrestling with it, I conceded too early. I agreed. This, which a few people use a term called bit drop. Bit drop is not a widely used term. It's not a historical term. It's not a thing, not a factor. Fought it because I really thought it should be. I like balanced heads much as the next guy. And the thing about bit wobble, that as you're swinging, the bit can wobble, not a thing. I conceded that placing mass forward of the eye is beneficial when it comes to transferring impact energy. That's still true. But you know what? I didn't sell off any of my American pattern heads. Instead, I just told myself, Joe, get off the mat. And I might not have got the reversal, but I got the escape. And then I got the takedown. Just the last couple of days, I got some back time. I'm going to get the win for Team USA. There are questions we left unasked and unanswered. I got the answers now. This is not a thing, and that this is more effective. I'll concede that point, but then I'm going to come right back to pattern, especially on this one in Michigan. Michigan's going to be a famous example of this. Overrules the difference. The second is swing dynamics. You know, when I make these, I edit a bunch of stuff out, and I edited the full dynamic study of a swing. And I cut out a whole bunch of stuff that had to do with my biomechanics and then everything that happens to the machine. And actually, it's two machines. It's a wedge and a lever. And you study them as a single tool. The U.S. Forest Service had called it one moving part. It's really two parts, but they're moving. And they move together. They shouldn't move in relation to each other unless you're really bad at hafting. And then in the dynamic study, I also left out the flick, because one objection is going to be, Joe, at the last minute when you're flicking, you said there was no time to control. There's no time to introduce wobble. But isn't the flick intentionally induced wobble at the last moment? And I can say, nah, I'll go over those in just a second. Let's begin with full swing dynamics. Let's correct that, and then talk about the most critical thing. How is this designed? So let's begin with correcting swing dynamics. First of all, when you do dynamic studies, there's two parts. It separates into the kinematics of this head. Where is the head at any given time during the swing cycle? And then there's the kinetics. Kinetics is a study of how power is applied. I have to limit it. I have to take biomechanics out. So I'm not going to be talking about the shoulder and the wrist and all that stuff. I'm going to pretend the pivot point's right here. That's intentional. But to be fair to those people who are going like, that ain't true. Let's do that. The power begins at the feet. It involves the legs. It involves the hips. It involves the torso. It involves my shoulders. And that makes me. I'm the center line for the origin of the arc. So the swing arc starts with me. It divides me. So the four parts of a swing are the pre-swing, where I get my hands in position. I have massive control. Whether this drops or not doesn't matter, because I have a huge plane of control here where it attaches. When I throw it up into the backswing, I have immense power of control over this head. I had demonstrated, just a little flashback clip here, that whatever attitude I assign this at the top is the attitude it's going to carry very quickly. The window of change closes. It rapidly collapses. And whatever this has, what it's going to get. Okay? Whether that's an error or it's a strike the way I intended, that's on me. That's totally up to me. It has nothing to do with this. Whether this drops a little bit like a Tassie would or a Tuatahis, doesn't matter, because I've got control. And as I switch to acceleration power, it's locked in, okay? So it's going to go in. Fourth part is the impact. That's power application. This is kinematics. I'm still the center line. The axe head is going to pass through that line. It's way out here when it gets to the apex, or it's way up here when it gets to the apex before I bring it down. That's where the head's traveling. And as it comes down, yeah, my arm extends, and at the last minute I whip it in there, and then I bring it back. The kinematics and the kinetics have to be kind of shortchanged so that I can get a fair comparison between axe handle length, axe handle style, and head patterns. I just want to focus on this, so I just ignored that for now. I want to talk just about the tool, not about the entire swing process. We'll let coaches and trainers take care of that. So we got that out of the way. Next question. You conceded there was a difference. Did you ever quantify the difference? Well, I hadn't, because I thought I couldn't. Then I realized I could. If I take out the biomechanics and if I concentrate just on the tool and I reduce a few things, I can make mathematical formulas that will act as a way to test different modeling. And the model's going to be based on a number of things. One, I'm going to have to take out how much the head design, how much the sharpening bevel, how much my technique buries this in wood, because that varies by head pattern, by person, by technique. I'm going to have to pretend that's not a factor. Oh, that went in there good. I'm going to pretend that's not a factor. I'm going to have to pretend this stops and doesn't penetrate, just to keep things fair for comparison, okay? And then I can't determine how much flex does this handle compared over maybe this one. This one's a little bit more whippery. It has to be, because this is a less efficient transfer of energy on this head. Talk about that more in just a second. And this one, it's a much stiffer handle. It can be. It's in that design. You recognize it? Double Michigan. So then I made the mathematical model. What does it take into account? We're going to make this completely rigid, like it's a bar of iron, even more rigid than that. We're not going to give it any ability to absorb. It's only going to transmit. And we're going to try to use the exact measurements of head weight, eye division between the two parts of the pole and the blade. And then I know the handle length. I can guess what the swing radius is for the tool I'm going to just pick the midpoint, which would be the arbitrary, just pick the center arbitrarily, and the center of the attachment point, and the length between the attachment, or the length between the center of the mass and my grip. Okay? There are two other factors that are going to come into play shortly. One is the striking radius of my arc is from the bit to the grip. It's this invisible line right here. That's why we angle our bits to match that line. The toe and the heel and the grip in a felling axe, maybe not so much in a bucking axe, but in a felling axe, we try to match those. That creates an isosceles triangle, right? That is this line where the handle is, and then this little distance here, okay? So that my grip and the striking line have the same point of origin. That's pretty efficient. Okay. And it matters. And then I'm going to run the mathematical models that talk about acceleration. We're going to arbitrarily use a mid-swing speed of about 15 meters per second, so that we can calculate the energy generated in that head from the tool alone as if it were swung only from this point. And of course, we're not swinging it from that point, as I said. We are swinging it from back here. Okay, massive control, set up the attitude, trading control over attitude. It's set, switching to acceleration, landing on impact, and then studying how is that energy divided up based on placement of the mass, the inertia of the head that wants to carry it straight, how much that's going to rock up. When we talk about that later, I'll mention, is that such a bad thing? That your bit wants to rock out? Is that a bad thing? Is it a bad thing if it doesn't strike middle, if it strikes heel first and wants to roll out? Is it bad if it hits toe first and wants to keep going? Those might not be bad things. And then we'll talk about the flick. The flick had 5 ways that people explained it. 2 of them I'm going to discount and say they're not the flick. I do not own any Tuatahis. I do not own a Tassie. I own only American pattern heads. I had some German, I had some Swedish, but those are for other people. I sell those right away. I focus mainly on the vintage axe era between mid 1800s to mid 1900s. If the axe is from the 70s, I play with them. I grind them. I do different things to them. I just mess with them. But if they're pristine vintage heads, I try to keep them just the way they were. So, how do we redeem the American pattern axe? Well, first of all, in the difference between a Tuatahis and a New Zealand pattern that have the heavier poles and they want to drop, okay. We already said that doesn't matter. If you're an axeman who practices with that axe, that's not a factor. It's a nice energy trade. You get to take the metal that was back here and put it up here, make your head more robust. You get to keep your taller bit. You can even make a taller bit, and you can give it cheek wherever you want the cheek. But don't put all the metal back here, because back here, it's just a counterweight. It doesn't help with anything else. It helps a little bit with driving force. And yes, you count the whole mass. You not only count the whole mass of the head when you do the energy transfer studies, you got to include the mass of the handle. We were figuring 1 1/4 to 1.5 pounds for an average handle, and you're just putting it in there. Not going to weigh each handle and then rehang it. Okay. So there is some superficiality to the mathematical model. Doesn't matter. It allows us to see what's going on, prove the theory, and then compare the heads. Our Tuatahis and Tassie pattern heads, it's not that they don't have a pole, they have a pole. It's just that their pole, the proportion to the rest of the head, doesn't make them perfectly balanced. So it can't be a whole lot of energy, can it? Well, no. No. All right, so in the model, I took this axe, and when we swung it, we computed to be about 194 joules when it hit. It carried 194 joules of energy. To rotation factor, it had about less than 1/2 of 1% on that head. And that's what my clue was. That's what clued me off that there's something unaccounted for. There's something wrong. Okay. Why would that be? Pattern. We'll get to it. Okay. When we did the other heads, when I did this head, the energy trade-off was huge. Okay. So when we put this in, it had a tendency to want, and we said this might not be a bad thing, it wanted to carry forward. And that was because so much of this bit's sticking above the head. This one always computed into high teens, even up to low 20s in loss of impact energy. That impact energy came back up to the handle. And I can feel that. I think you can even see it in the camera, how much energy comes back up the handle to me. And that's a trade-off because there are other efficiencies this axe gives me. One, it gives me 2 bits. And there's all kinds of theory. In a testosterone charged being, the hormone does 3 things. 1, it gives them the potential to be hairier. 2, it can make things hard. 3, it can make things up. We call it the TestosterZone. Women call it mansplaining. And since I cannot empirically prove this, I just don't have the resources. When I asked how would I do the same modeling they did for baseball bats and that they did for golf clubs, it was daunting. I'd have to have instrumentation capable of measuring forces along the axe. I don't know what they call them, accelerometers, impact pressure sensors, all along here and in the head. I'd have to have them in the thing that I hit. So I've got to have the instrumentation. But I also have to have the ability to replicate it numerous times with a team of elite axemen, or at least axemen who were trained to do the experiment exactly as I wanted it done. Then we have to guard against them having like a bad swing or something. So I have to give them a number of repetitions. The recommendation was give them at least 6 repetitions with each one to negate a negative 1 off. Take the ones that were the mode, the average, or the mode specifically, and then count those, but then count them for a number of different axe persons, axe men, axe women. And I asked how many would I need? I said, minimum 20. You want 20 people swinging each pattern, each setup that you have for an axe, and each at least 6 or 7 times, maybe 10 times for each one. And we recommend 50. And when you're done, don't do the statistics yourself. Hire somebody that's trained in statistics to give you the numbers that you're going to use at the end. And when you finish, have the study that you come up with peer reviewed. And when that's done, and all of the objections have been addressed, then apply for your doctorate in axe dynamics. But for a YouTube presentation, Joe, that's not really practical. Agreed. What can we do? We can make the mathematical model. Okay, so we did that. I found the difference that accounts for the almost meaningless implications of bit drop. It's not going to matter in your swing dynamics. It also doesn't matter too much in energy trade-off dynamics if you use an axe like this one. It's the pattern. This is a Michigan pattern axe. This is a Michigan pattern axe. It is described as having a drooping bit. Check this out.
For my South Dakota friends, I'll draw pictures. Here, I'm showing you that reversible, the one I said was the worst offender. Now, I put white tape across it bit to bit, and you'll see it's a straight line. It forms a T at 90 degrees to the haft. I'm trying to get the isosceles triangle to work out. It will not work out. Remember how the other American pattern heads, especially the Michigan, the bit center and to the grip and the eye to the grip are exactly the same length. That means it will form an isosceles triangle that keeps that perfectly on the arc. So I put tape on there to show you where I want it to be. It won't work that way. Because if I try to hit that mid bit, I have to put the grip across where it should have been. And if I bring it out so that it can hit mid bit, well, now it's parallel. So that's because it's 90 degrees to the handle. Let's look at one that hits with more efficiency. But first, just another quick view how that shoots off of the radius. See, if I line that up so that the center of the eye is on the radius, both ends extend past it. Now here's a Michigan pattern double bit, and both of those edges, the cord points to the grip. So no matter how I lay that one down, see I put tape on it now to show you that, it's always going to encounter the wood with the full mass of the head riding on the radius like that. That means almost none of it goes into rotational torque. The model shows that this one is 0.1, so 0.1%. Both of the AI platforms used for the calculations said it was negligible.
So we said this one's less efficient. Let me see if you can see it happen, all right? So we'll knock this down sideways so that you can watch the handle. And then that will give me a more resistant force than if I was trying to split it. And let's put that in there, about a 45-degree angle. Maybe a little steeper, because I don't want it to penetrate much. I want it to stop. Watch the handle. Do it again. Okay. Now I felt that little bit of buzz. Now I'll move the cut, so I'm not going to hit in the same place. Maybe I'll go behind it a little bit. Watch this handle. Nothing. I didn't feel it. Okay. The same as when I use this one. This one's not going to flex much. It's a short handle. This is a 28-inch Hetherington pattern East Coast Lumberjack handle. But since it's shorter, it will be stiffer. I should feel much more report. I don't feel anything. That's totally subjective, but that felt good. And that little bugger went in there, okay? Comes out good too. And why might you not want to hit the center? Remember, the Forest Service repeatedly in the old literature, not the new literature, said as you buck something, keep one part of your axe free. They used it in the McLaren movie that they made, that little McLaren film. You put part of it free, overlap. Okay, part of it free. Now it'll be free on both sides if I hit in the middle. Okay, and that's so you can rock it out easy. That will be, oh, I love this axe. And Rod, I really like that handle. Okay. So we go back to swing dynamics. And I said, when you put it up here, you've locked it in. Rapidly closing control window. Very little is going to affect that head attitude as you come down. Okay? As you come down. Whatever you put in there, that's pretty much what's going to stay in there. Well, on the flick, some people would be quick to argue, no, on the flick at the last minute, you're putting all kinds of control in there, so that's got to be wrong. It isn't. So I did see 5 ways that the flick was introduced. I'm going to turn this so you can see it better. And 2 of them I'll discount right away. They're not the flick. In a 4 or 5-year-old discussion in one of Ben Scott's threads, one commenter said the way he does the flick is with the J stroke. And at first I thought he was describing going down and hooking like this. He's starting with his axe cocked and he's J-stroking it. That was not what he was doing. That actually would have been good. What he was doing was, at the last minute, He's coming down, and what he thinks is the moment, I'm going to say what he thinks. What he thinks is the moment of impact, he's twisting left or right. Well, two questions right away. What species are you chopping? Second, how big a round did you have? Because on most rounds, if I did that, it just turns the round or knocks it over. That's not the flick, okay? Don't recommend it, because if it is a really big round and that's the way you're going, you're putting lateral force on a handle that wasn't designed for lateral force. This has totally been designed for this force, okay? So you're pumping it into wood, pulling it out. And mostly that's a design just for control, okay? That's not what axes are meant for. They're not pry bars. We thin them to absorb vibration, not to act as pry bars. That's a very bad place to be prying on, because it'll snap right there. The first axe I ever lost, I loaned it to somebody, and he said it just broke. And I could see it snapped off right at the eye. And I couldn't imagine how he did that. And then a boy came and said it was the crotch of a tree. He sunk it in, he couldn't get it out, so he was wiggling it back and forth like this. He got on it and he jerked like this, and it snapped off, as you imagine it would. J-stroke, not a thing. The other guy said he was stroking like this. So he's coming down, chopping at an angle. He keeps the attitude the same the whole time. And his idea is you will like chop it so hard that that'll break off. And again, how big a round are you working with? Because I mean, unless it was an enormously wide round, I wouldn't do it. And second, and maybe he just does it on the outside, because as he gets in the middle, it gets easier. When I've done that to some woods, like if they're soft, like that red pine, and I try to do it like this way, that doesn't cleave all the way to the bottom. It kind of tears off. It breaks off. So now you start getting a round that starts to go like this. The sides are getting, but they're not cleaving straight. We want the split to be in line with the grains. So those two right away, they're not. Then I'll start with the one that I think people, they're exaggerating a little bit. And if they're teaching this to somebody who's trying to learn it, it'll be very frustrating for a beginner. Is they're saying that at the very last second, they flick it. We were saying the dynamic model, that's not a very good time to do that. You don't have much control. You'll be using only the handle's flats back here, because your grip's back here now. Okay. You've got the mass extended full length of the handle. Remember, that's the hard part to control. The best time to control it's when your hand's up here. Okay. And I know some people just go like this. Doesn't matter. Because as they swing it, as this is in motion coming up to the apex, you get pretty good control. Especially if you got the big knobs. Guys that like the big knob, probably what they're doing. They're clubbing it like this. They're windmilling it. That's fine. Okay. That's not going to be a problem. Sorry? If you tell a beginner that they've got to swing as hard as they can at this thing, and at the last second, the nanosecond that's going to hit, flick it, I don't know how you're going to do that. So you got to cheat something. Either one, you're going to do this and you don't have much control, or you're going to amp back a little bit, okay, on your swing, because you're going to want to have a longer zone of control so you can do that. So you're going to have to slow it down. And I think when you're flicking, you probably do. You don't just come blasting at this, because you might get a crazy ricochet coming off of that thing. Okay, you're more careful when you do it. That could be. But here's what I see happening when I play the people who are teaching it. They do a variation of this. They have the axe up in the air. They know already, I'm going to flick this. They're setting their brain programming already. They're not going to flick at the last second. They intended to do it when they started. I'm going to flick this. And as they do it, faster than they can consciously think it, they've told their brain, play the flick program. And their brain says, we're going to rotate. So they're rotating as they come into that place where they don't have much control over it. So they're going like this. Okay. As the head meets the wood, it's already cocked. If it's not, then they started with their head this way. And they came down and tried to pry it that way. That could be. That probably is very effective to go like that. This is not flickable wood. Do not expect me. This is from the other day when I was trying to flick it. It couldn't be done. This is that really twisted up, because this came from an ash tree that was leaning about that much. Okay, so it's under compression the whole time that it was growing. This wood is, the fibers are all interwoven, it's all locked together. When I go to split this, it's a devil, because you can get this to make a nice crack. You can get this finely cracked open, and it's not going to separate for about another 8 swings as you cut it apart. Okay, so those count, either one of those counts, but knowing that they're already turning it, and knowing what we do about American pattern axes. They're balanced. They have that big chunky counterweight back here. Oh, that's nice. Oh, and I got a crack started. Can I crack this? Not likely. You got a nice crack started, but it's not gonna go. Oh, Joe, now do the flick. Now your flick will work. Not in this, it won't. Let's see if I can. Okay, so for that beginner, what we want to do is, I'll show it here, just go ahead and set it up here. When you got massive control, set the angle. So when it comes down, it's already canted. Let me face you. So when you come down, it's already canted. Let the counterweight pull it over. See if I can get that. Maybe. Hey. I'll be danged. I'm going to have to do this every time now. I'll be danged. That worked. Let's try it. Cant it first, then come down. Do another one. It's doing it. Cool. Well, that's a new discovery. Cant it a little more. A little bit more. Ah, look at that twist around there. I'll be darned. I've never been able to split this wood. Oh, by the way, that's the match. Points, Team USA.